question of commercialism is a source of worry. Must one make a choice? Must it be a matter of either setting your sights on winning an Academy Award and becoming a millionaire, or making only the movies you want to make and starving to death?
I'm on the move, I'm going up. I'm a man on a mission with no missions, and I'm looking for love. Oh, I'm just looking for love. It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Watch out now. Cause baby, I feel real good, and I wish I would. Watch out now. It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good, baby. Watch out now. Everybody watch out.
The studio failed to advertise Raging Bull well, and the picture brought in just over $23 million. And even raving reviews and 6 Oscar nominations didn't help.
Raging Bull, the odyssey of a fighter's victories in the ring and his losses in life.
On the eve of the awards, Robert celebrated the second win of his career.
I want to thank my mother and father for having me, and my grandmother and grandfather for having them.
And after a 10-year hiatus, Thelma Schoonmaker won a statuette.
I want to thank, first of all, Martin Scorsese. He edited this film with me every minute of the time.
The Academy finally noticed Martin, who was nominated for Best Director for the first time. But the victory went to Robert Redford. Ordinary People beat Raging Bull for Best Picture also. The defeat was as painful as a punch from LaMotta. Martin knew that he wouldn't be appreciated by such wide audiences, as were his friends Coppola, Spielberg, and Lucas. But until that day, he had thought that at least the Academy and film critics and cinephiles were on his side. Now, he had no reason to believe in success. The film community once again rejected his passion of love. The crushed director agreed to his next project without pausing, though he almost immediately rejected it. The King of Comedy would serve as a tragedy in his relationship with De Niro.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rupert Pupkin.
We had explored everything that we could have with each other on Raging Bull. I should have not done the King of Comedy. I should have waited for something that came from me. I found that I had to convince myself every day to be a pro and go into work, and I disappointed myself. Like, very often I was late in the morning and that sort of thing, and the picture went over budget.
Well, I find that strange, you know, but it's typical.
Nonetheless, Scorsese maintained that Rupert Pupkin was the best work De Niro had done with him. But unfortunately, it separated them for the next 8 years.
Mom!
Take it easy, lower it.
I'm not gonna lower it. I have to do this now.
The duo was tired and needed a break. Instead of resting, they got a gigantic budget of $19 million for a comedy film following 2 commercial failures on the director's part.
But look, I figure it this way. Better to be king for a night than schmuck for a lifetime.
For the second time in his career, a credit of trust only increased his level of anxiety. A few weeks before filming, Scorsese once again ended up in the hospital. The directors diagnosed him with exhaustion and pneumonia. As soon as he was discharged, the director went to the set. Because of his health, he was only able to film 3 hours a day, so the job stretched out for 5 months. The only silver lining was Jerry Lewis. The musician replaced Johnny Carson, who had turned down the role, and gave the best acting of his career.
I really believe this. I think once you get over the initial shyness, you're going to be okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
De Niro drew him into the world of improvisation and introduced him to the Stanislavski method. Before the scene in the house outside the city, Robert teased Lewis with anti-Semitic jokes which helped Jerry not have to pretend to be angry.
Yeah, all right, so I made a mistake.
So did Hitler.
The scene was complete improvisation, and the actors did not use a single line from the script.
I'm gonna work 50 times harder, and I'm gonna be 50 times more famous than you.
Then you're gonna have idiots like you playing your life.
That's right.
Right.
Yes.
Scorsese was satisfied. But Lewis could not stand the director's methods. In the beginning, he would arrive on set in the morning and wait for Martin all day. The director would arrive around 4 in the afternoon and say that they were filming a scene that didn't include Lewis. After a week of this, the actor couldn't stand it anymore and demanded pay for all the days he spent waiting, or else he would quit the film. He also asked what was the point of hiring someone if one didn't require their services.
Did anyone ever tell you you're a moron?
Scorsese paid him for his time and convinced Lewis that he was needed.
I really have to ask you that. How do you do it?
By the way, the decision to keep Jerry's name was not a coincidence. Lewis suggested doing that so that during the scene shot on the street, if anyone yelled at his name, it would be as though fans were talking to his character.
Hi, Gary. How are you? Hi there.
In this scene, there are no actors besides the driver and the woman.
I can't, I'm late.
Believe that kind of a person.
In the scene when Rupert and Masha are arguing, they stumbled upon a gang of kids. The gang was played by Gerard Depardieu and Scorsese's favorite band, The Clash. After 4.5 months of shooting, Martin had over 180 miles of film. The amount of material was horrifying, with 20 to 30 takes per scene. For the first 2 months, he didn't even edit 1 minute.
I think it's good. You're laughing at that? It's very good. Do me a favor.
In addition, he continued to feel sick. He had to go to the doctor daily, and treatment lasted for 3 years. In conclusion, his marriage with Isabella unraveled. Her career really started to take off. Rossellini left her husband and returned to Europe. The King of Comedy was widely released a year after it had finished filming. It made $2.5 million, a sum which was 7 times less than its budget. It was the biggest failure of the year, and Martin's third in a row. Martin was one of the producers and lost some of his own savings. The critics also reacted icily because they had expected much more from the celebrity duo.
Thank you very much. We'll discuss the other things. That's your problem. Thank you very much. Nice talking to you.
In November of '82, at the Odeon restaurant, the director was celebrating his 40th birthday. Although celebrate might be too strong a word. Divorce, the failure of his film, and bankruptcy were not the best backdrop for a party. In the middle of the party, Coppola tried to encourage his friends. Francis had just lost his film studio. American Zoetrope was about to declare bankruptcy.
Marty, would you calm down? You're broke. I owe $50 million.
Martin calmed down and got inspired by a new idea. The screen adaptation of Nikos Kazantzakis' novel had been tugging at his imagination ever since Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. He had dreamed of filming vulnerable drama that would depict Jesus' humanity and the hardships which the child of God had to face. So he asked Paul Schrader to write a script based on the book. Schrader fulfilled his request back in '78. Unfortunately, a script with contradicting religious themes from a director who was famous for violent films and had tanked the last 3 did not attract investors. However, when Raging Bull got 8 Oscar nominations in '81, Paramount decided to take a risk and set aside $14 million for the project. Of course, they were expecting to see De Niro in the role of Jesus. But after the conflicts on the set of The King of Comedy, the actor declined to work on the project. At the same time, the studio was bombarded with angry letters from religious organizations. Spiritual leaders called for a boycott of the film which hadn't even begun shooting. The team packed its bags for the 3-month-long filming trip to Israel, which would ensue in 4 weeks. While the paint on the set was still drying and the tailors were working on the costumes, they had to return their tickets. The project was canceled. It was a knife in the back which caused Scorsese to reject every Paramount project for the next 16 years, even when its leadership changed. His years in Hollywood had taught Martin to be tough. This time, he didn't spiral into depression or have a fit. He just wanted to make a film.
Me too. Me too. Okay, I'll see you later.
The owner of a major music label in Los Angeles, media magnate David Geffen, was widening his influence in Hollywood with his own film company, which would unite with Steven Spielberg 10 years later to become DreamWorks Studios. But in the early 80s, Geffen Pictures made a lot of money on the comedy Risky Business and was ready to invest in new projects. The intriguing plot of a funny thriller called After Hours caught his attention. Joseph Minion had originally written it for a college assignment. His professor, the Yugoslavian director Dusan Makave, gave him the highest grade.
I think he's just waiting to be discovered.
The producers Amy Robinson and Griffin Dunne got in contact with Scorsese and convinced him to make the movie. He liked the plot, but what he liked even more was the studio's willingness to invest $5 million and guaranteed him creative freedom. The only condition was that Griffin Dunne was to play the main role.
I don't know what to say.
The director agreed and squeezed as much out of the actor as he possibly could, forbidding him to smoke, have sex, or sleep more than 3 hours a night during filming.
I gotta sleep. You understand that, don't you?
Martin created a parody on the classic Hitchcock story, an innocent man falsely accused.
They're all trying to kill me. I mean, I just wanted to leave. You know, my apartment, maybe meet a nice girl. And now I've got to die for it, you know?
The soundtrack copied Bernard Herrmann's style, and the camera movement was as though copied from the thriller Marine. The There was also the exaggerated feeling of suspense and the many close-up shots. The effect was created by Michael Ballhaus, whose ability to film quickly and creatively amazed the director. The main obstacle was the scene with the keys. The keys falling on the actors were filmed for real. During the first take, they were not able to get the shot that they wanted, and the director and producers did not want to risk filming it again. Everyone was afraid to get Griffin hurt, except for Griffin, who insisted that they film it again.
I went, really? I got one more. We can do one more.
Just throw down the keys.
But Ballhaus found a way out of the problem by filming a few more frames from other angles and speeding up the moment with a quick movement of the camera. Paul's intriguing dialogue with the bouncer is almost word-for-word quote from the novel Before the Law by Franz Kafka.
It's not much, but it's all I've got.
I'll take your money because I don't want you to feel you left anything untried.
While we're on the subject of quotes, it turned out after the release that the first half of the film was identical to comedian Joe Frank's monologue. The plot, characters, and even the flying $20 bill.
Excuse me,
Frank sued the studio and got $1 million. As for unexpected twists on set, the finale just wouldn't come together. The idea to leave it with the retreating car just seemed too cruel. Thelma Schoonmaker's husband, Michael Powell, suggested that they bring Tom back to work. It was a crazy and completely illogical option, but they filmed it. It wasn't a sad ending, but during the pre-screenings, the audience reacted positively. Martin gave up, but left the public food for thought. After Paul returns to work, the camera spins around the office and the credits roll. But when the main character's table comes into view again, he's gone. Is this a hint that the finale is the character's imagination, or a mistake? Well, that's up to you. After Hours brought the studio $10 million, and Martin a Best Director award at the Cannes Festival. Hey, do you like our work? Let us know with your like and comment. Push that subscribe button and share with your friends. If you want to support the project financially, become our sponsor on Patreon or YouTube sponsorship. Thank you.